A man sits alone inside a cafe that should be closed. The chairs are stacked, the lights are low, and the place is dead quiet. The owner tells him to leave.
Okay, sir. It is time to close.
Instead, he grabs her arm and forces her to sit down. Calmly, he finishes assembling a mechanical hand, then slides out a hidden blade and cuts a piece of cake. He makes her eat it while she's shaking in fear. Before she can scream, a police officer walks in and orders the man to get out.
Get out.
With no resistance, he calmly leaves the cafe. The officer helps the shaken woman pull down the shutter. They lock the place together. Then both of them get into the police car. And then...
I can take you home, buddy.
The story opens with a massive cargo truck crossing into Colombia, slowly rolling past the border checkpoint. A police officer checks the paperwork, gives the truck a quick look, and waves it through without any trouble. Not long after, the truck pulls into a deserted and sketchy location. The driver steps out, walks to the back, and pries open a large wooden crate. A man climbs out from inside. His name is Chris Cheney, fresh out of prison and clearly not here by accident. The moment Chris gets his footing, the driver suddenly points a gun at him and demands more money. Chris tells him the payment was already agreed on and handed over before he got inside the crate, but the driver coldly explains that the money only covered the ride. That is when Chris notices a second man sneaking up behind him, also armed. Without hesitating, Chris hurls his bag at one of them and immediately engages the other in close combat. He slashes one man across the shoulder with a knife and follows it up with a brutal punch that drops him to the ground. Chris then turns on the second attacker and overwhelms him with raw speed and skill, leaving both men unconscious on the pavement. He calmly takes their keys, gets back into the truck, and drives off, disappearing before anyone can stop him. Elsewhere, we are introduced to a terrifying figure known as El Corvo, a ruthless and unstable killer. Inside a quiet room, he carefully works on a mechanical arm, tightening and adjusting its parts with disturbing calm as he prepares to head out. Back with Chris, he parks at a distance and keeps watch over a heavily guarded house, studying it closely. After some time, a car pulls out of the driveway. Inside is a teenage girl named Alisa. This is the daughter of Vicente, a powerful gangster who lives in the house. Chris follows the car without drawing attention, trailing it all the way to Alisa's school and waiting nearby until her day is over. When Alisa returns home later, Vicente greets her warmly and asks about her day. They laugh and joke together, clearly close despite his criminal life. That same night, El Corvo appears again, sitting inside a cafe long after closing hours. The owner approaches him and tells him she is shutting down, but he grabs her arm and forces her to sit across from him. As she panics, he finishes attaching his mechanical hand and reveals a hidden blade. He calmly cuts a piece of cake and makes her eat it, savoring her fear. A police car suddenly pulls up outside. A female officer enters the cafe, and the owner tells her that El Corvo threatened her. The officer orders him to leave.
Get out.
The owner watches him walk away and asks why he was not arrested. The officer explains that since he did not physically harm her, there is nothing she can do. She locks up the cafe and offers to drive the shaken woman home. The moment they get into the car, El Corvo appears out of nowhere and kills the officer without hesitation. He turns to the terrified cafe owner and calmly tells her to stay quiet unless she wants to die too. The next morning, two of Vicente's men arrive to take Alisa to school. As they sit in traffic, a scruffy-looking man approaches the car and starts cleaning the windshield like a street hustler. It is Chris. He taps on the glass and motions for them to roll the window down, but they ignore him. Without warning, Chris smashes the side mirror. One of the guards jumps out, ready to fight, but Chris drops him instantly with a single move. The second man tries to lock the doors, but Chris grabs him by the neck and knocks him out before he can react. Alisa panics and runs into the street. Chris jumps into the car and cuts her off, then chases her down on foot and grabs her. Her phone slips from her hand as he forces her into the trunk and speeds away. When Vicente hears what happened, he completely loses control. He beats one of the men until he collapses, then orders the other one killed. He immediately calls his lieutenant Joey and tells him to contact every crew they work with. He wants the entire country torn apart until his daughter is found. Inside the trunk, Alisa screams as Chris drives deep into a remote forest. When he opens the trunk to check on her, she suddenly bolts into the woods. Chris runs after her until she trips and falls. He tries to calm her and shows her a photo of himself with her parents. He tells her that he knew her mother well and that she asked him to take Alisa far away from Vicente.
Your mother made me promise, if anything ever happened to her, that I would find you and I would come and take you away from Vicente.
Alisa does not believe him and demands to know what his connection is to her mother. Chris says it is a long story and asks her to trust him, but she is terrified and refuses. Chris hands her his gun and tells her she can shoot him if he lies. Alisa fires a shot, missing him. She then gets into the car, holds the gun to his head, and orders him to take her home. Chris tells her the drive is long and she will get tired holding the gun, adding that she does not really have it in her to pull the trigger. Alisa warns him she could shoot him at any moment. When she tries again, the gun clicks empty. Chris admits he only loaded one bullet. Alisa stays shaken as they continue driving. Soon, the car runs low on fuel, and Chris pulls into a gas station, warning her to stay quiet. The moment he steps away, Alisa runs to a group of men nearby, begging for help and calling her father. The men attack Chris, but he fights them off without killing anyone, knocking them out one by one. He grabs Alisa just as Vicente answers the phone, forces her back into the car, ties her hands, and drives off. Furious and confused, Alisa demands to know who he thinks he is. Chris tells her he is her father.
Who are you to tell me what to do, fuck?
I'm your father!
Alisa is stunned and immediately rejects it. Hungry and overwhelmed, she demands food before listening to anything else. Chris gives in and drives them to a nearby diner, unaware that someone is already following them. While Chris and Alisa sit down inside the diner, Vicente is already mobilizing his entire operation. He orders his men to search the area where Alisa's call came from. His lieutenant Nick gathers the information and rushes to pass it along to El Corvo. It becomes clear that Nick has been secretly feeding El Corvo details about Vicente's business to settle an old debt between them. Back at the diner, Chris urges Alisa to eat quickly because they cannot stay long. Alisa pushes back, warning him that if he forces her to leave before she finishes, she will scream and cause a scene. As they argue, Chris notices the necklace around her neck. He tells her he bought it for her mother and says that as Alisa grew older, she became her mirror image. Alisa becomes emotional and says she misses her mother deeply and does not understand why she died. Chris tells her he does not believe it was suicide and insists Vicente is responsible.
I miss her so much. I don't know why she
didn't. I think Vicente killed her.
Alisa immediately defends Vicente, saying she loves him and that Chris has no proof. Before the argument can continue, a group of armed men suddenly surround the diner. These men belong to a local gang leader who has been following Chris, hoping to collect the reward money. Chris attacks first, fighting his way through the gang as the diner erupts into chaos. During the brawl, two men grab Alisa and rush her outside. Chris keeps fighting until the place is wrecked. When he finally gets outside, he realizes Alisa is gone and the car has been destroyed. He storms back into the diner, grabs one of the gang members, and demands to know where they took her. When the man refuses to talk, Chris drags him to the deep fryer and smashes his face against it until he finally breaks and gives up the location. Alisa is taken to the gang's hideout, where the men hand her over to their boss, collect their payment, and leave. The gang leader tries to calm her and explains that he plans to return her to Vicente for a large reward. To reassure her, he allows her to call her father. Alisa asks Vicente if he had anything to do with her mother's death.
I have something to ask you. Something important.
Yes?
Do you have anything to do with Mama's death?
Vicente denies it completely. When she tells him the man who kidnapped her claims to be her father, Vicente drops the phone and flies into a violent rage. At the hideout, the gang leader suddenly realizes El Corvo has arrived. He discovers that El Corvo has already slaughtered everyone else inside. Panicking, he hides Alisa and arms himself, but it makes no difference. El Corvo kills everyone in his path without hesitation. Alisa sneaks out of hiding and knocks the gang leader unconscious with a vase. When she sees the bodies everywhere, she grabs a gun and fires at El Corvo, but he spots her immediately and charges. Before El Corvo can reach her, Chris appears and attacks him head-on. The two clash in a brutal fight, and Chris quickly realizes El Corvo is far stronger than anyone he has faced before. Despite this, Chris lands several solid hits. El Corvo nearly kills him, but Alisa screams for him to stop. El Corvo turns toward her, and Chris tells her to run. She flees until she hits a dead end. As El Corvo moves in to kill her, Chris tackles him, and both men fall from the upper level of the building. The gang leader wakes up and sprays bullets at them. Using the chaos, Chris crashes through glass to escape. He waits until the gang leader runs out of ammo, then walks up and kills him. El Corvo comes after Chris again, but a car suddenly slams into him and sends him flying. Alisa is behind the wheel. Chris jumps into the car, and they escape before El Corvo can recover. After escaping the shootout, Chris and Alisa abandon the wrecked area and slip into a crowded flea market. Chris tells Alisa she needs to change her clothes immediately because her face is everywhere by now and too many people are hunting them. She blends in with the crowd after changing, and once they are moving again, she demands that Chris finally tell her the full truth. Chris explains that Alisa's mother was his wife long before Vicente betrayed him. The three of them once worked together, pulling off bank robberies as a crew. When Chris found out his wife was pregnant, he decided their next job would be the last one. They planned to take the money and walk away for good. The job succeeded, but Vicente set him up afterward, planting evidence that made it look like Chris stole the money alone. Chris took the fall and spent 15 years in prison while Vicente walked free with the cash, his wife, and his daughter. Years later, her mother visited him in prison and confessed that Vicente had taken Alisa from her and refused to let her leave. When she finally decided to run and take her daughter back, she asked Chris to protect Alisa the moment he got out.
She says if anything ever happens to her, I need to come and find my daughter, and I need to protect her.
Shortly after that visit, she was found dead. Chris says he does not believe for a second that it was suicide. Alisa listens to everything, but she still refuses to believe him. Meanwhile, El Corvo is shown alive at his hideout, stitching up the wound on his head. After finishing, he steps outside, confronts a man on the road, and brutally attacks him, stealing his car and continuing the hunt. Elsewhere, Vicente watches security footage and spots El Corvo. The moment he realizes El Corvo is loose and targeting his daughter, panic sets in. He understands that things are now completely out of control. That night, Chris and Alisa look for a new car to escape. After breaking into one, Alisa notices the route Chris has planned leads straight to the airport. She confronts him, saying she cannot abandon her school, her life, or Vicente, even if he betrayed him.
My whole life. And you know what? A life I actually like. I like where I live, I like my school, I like my friends. And I already have big plans for my life.
Chris insists Vicente killed her mother, but Alisa argues there is no proof. Chris explains that her mother planned to run the same month she died, and that timing is no coincidence. Chris tells Alisa he plans to take her to live with her aunt so she can be safe. While they argue, the car's owner suddenly appears. Chris steps out to handle it, and Alisa seizes the moment. She drives off alone. Chris tries to stop another passing car for help, but he freezes when he sees El Corvo behind the wheel. El Corvo speeds after Alisa, closing the distance fast. Alisa abandons the stolen car near a payphone and tries to call Vicente for help, but before she can finish, El Corvo steps into view. Terrified, she runs into the street and bangs on doors, begging for someone to help her, but no one answers. She keeps running until she finds a place to hide. When El Corvo catches up, she tries to fight back with a metal pipe, but he easily knocks it out of her hands. He pulls out an apple and calmly tells her to take a bite.
Have you tried this apple?
Alisa does, then spits it in his face and runs. She hears Chris shouting her name and runs toward him just as El Corvo opens fire. A violent gunfight breaks out, with Alisa trapped in the middle. El Corvo grabs her and threatens to kill her unless Chris drops his weapon.
Even if you put a bullet through my brain, the muscles will twitch and pull the trigger.
Chris does exactly what he says. El Corvo ties Alisa to a car and then turns his attention back to Chris, tying him up and beating him repeatedly. No matter how many times El Corvo knocks him down, Chris keeps getting back up. El Corvo demands to know who Chris really is, but Chris refuses to answer. Alisa finally screams that Chris is her father.
He's my father!
El Corvo is stunned when he realizes Alisa is not Vicente's biological daughter.
Vicente's your father?
No.
Furious, he beats Chris unconscious. The next morning, Chris wakes up hanging by his neck, supported only by a tire. Vicente stands in front of him, ready to kill him. Chris tells Vicente that he needs him alive if he wants to get Alisa back.
What? Both want to get Lisa back.
Vicente ignores him and kicks the tire away, letting him choke, but at the last second, he orders his men to cut him down. The moment Chris is freed, he punches Vicente and accuses him of murdering his wife. Vicente's men overpower Chris and drag him into a car. As they drive, El Corvo calls Vicente and gives him a location for the exchange. He tells Vicente to come alone and thanks Nick for providing the information.
Please say thanks to your right-hand man for telling me that the girl was in play.
Vicente immediately realizes Nick betrayed him. After ending the call, Vicente shoots Nick in the back and kills him. Chris mocks Vicente, saying betrayal has always been his specialty. Vicente explains that El Corvo was once a hired killer who went too far on a job.
I hired him for a job, came highly recommended, a professional. But he went beyond what was required, crossed the line.
When Vicente tried to have him killed, El Corvo escaped after slaughtering his guards and cutting off the hand that was cuffed. Since then, Vicente has been hunting him, and now he finally knows where he is. They arrive near the meeting location. Vicente leaves Chris in the car and tells him El Corvo does not know he is there. He orders Chris to sneak in quietly from behind, the way they used to work together.
He's not expecting you. You come from the back.
like the old days.
Inside, Vicente confronts El Corvo and discovers that all of his men are already dead. He then sees Alisa tied to a conveyor belt. El Corvo tells him to save her by cutting off her hands before the belt reaches the grinder at the end. Vicente runs to the controls and tries to stop the machine, but it keeps destroying everything he touches. Desperate, he rushes back to Alisa as the belt keeps moving. Meanwhile, El Corvo spots Chris and charges him. The two clash again in a brutal fight. Chris demands to know why El Corvo is doing this to a child. El Corvo reveals that Vicente paid him to kill Alisa's mother and that he enjoyed torturing her.
You think Vicente killed her? He hired me to make her disappear. I enjoy it.
He says he lost his hand during that job, and now he wants revenge by taking Alisa's hand or her life. Vicente, broken and desperate, tries to cut off Alisa's hand but cannot go through with it when she screams in pain. Chris struggles to reach her, but El Corvo stabs him repeatedly, driving him to the ground. El Corvo forces Vicente to confess the truth to Alisa. Vicente admits he ordered her mother's murder because he was afraid she would take Alisa away.
Tried to stop your mom from taking you away from me. You understand?
As Alisa breaks down, El Corvo claims the control panel is on the ground floor and that there is no time to reach it. Remembering the necklace, Chris tells Alisa to use it. She rips it off and throws it into the machine. The diamond jams the grinder and finally stops the belt. El Corvo rushes to kill Alisa, but Chris rises again. Vicente tackles El Corvo, and both of them fall from a deadly height. Alisa believes both men are dead. She rushes to Chris, who is badly wounded and fading. She begs him not to leave her, saying she has no one else. Chris goes silent, and she breaks down in tears. After everything that happened, Alisa is seen standing quietly at a grave. At first, it seems like it might belong to Chris, but it is revealed to be her mother's grave instead. Chris is alive and standing beside her. He tells Alisa that her mother would be proud of her strength and everything she endured. Overwhelmed, Alisa hugs him for the first time and finally calls him dad. As they leave, Vicente is confirmed dead, but El Corvo's body is missing. His disappearance leaves an unsettling question of whether he survived, ending the story on a quiet but ominous note. Well, that's the end of the 2025 action film, Diablo. How did you like this recap? Let me know in the comments below.